it was almost like I eventually ended up hiring for Uber as a manager and ended up using that same playbook. What it did was it was very self-selecting. Like folks who didn't want to put in the effort to do the homework and come in prepared were automatically sort of like self-rejecting themselves out of that process. And then folks like myself who found that sort of a useful exercise ended up joining the company.
All right. Well, let's bring out Hasrat Godil. So, Hasrat, nice. Thank you for joining us. Hasrat Godil, you're coming to us from the Bay Area. He is the head of applications engineering at Horizon 3 AI. So we'll get into some of our fun AI topics at the end, which I'm sure you will be more well versed in than maybe certainly me at that. So
he doesn't even know what an application is.
No,
so.
I'm still unfamiliar with that, and I don't know what AI stands for. No, I'm just kidding. So
it's the gray hair.
And yeah, definitely.
It's the dimension.
I know it's the lighting that makes it gray. It's actually really dark if you turn the lights off. So Hasrat, so tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, we kind of gave a little bit away that you're one of the early people over at Uber, but tell us your origin story that's gotten you to the place that you're at currently at Horizon 3.
Thanks for having me on board, Shane and Taylor. Nice to be on the podcast. Looking forward to this conversation. I've been in technology over for the past 20 years or so. Started off early days as a software engineer at Microsoft. Spent a bunch of time building out sort of core foundational pieces for some of their online services. This was back in the day when Windows was their focus, and so online was a relatively newer thing for them to be doing. Sort of got bored with sort of how big companies worked and was looking to move to something smaller, and that's where I landed at Uber. I ended up spending a long time at Uber too, and obviously, history. Like in hindsight, it's easy to say that that was a really sort of positive outcome in terms of both what that company ended up growing up to be, as well as the work I ended up doing there. Some of it has gone on to become a big part of their business. So yeah, and then since Uber, I've sort of been in leadership roles in sort of various capacities at startups. I'm right now at Horizon 3.ai. We are a cybersecurity company focused on building autonomous pen testing as a platform and making that sort of a key part of how companies use attack to inform their cybersecurity posture. Really, yeah, excited to be on this podcast.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. If I go back and I'm like Hasrat at like 13 years old, if I asked that kid what he was going to be when he was all grown up, do you think he would be like, oh, I'd be a VP of cybersecurity, like a VP of applications engineering at a cybersecurity company doing pen testing?
I mean, I don't think it was like, I think we don't really like plan that far out ahead when we're, those ages. But I was always into technology. I always felt like, I loved learning how things worked, leveraging sort of computers and science to build stuff. So those like core passions for both breaking and making things was there. I'd say.
What was the first thing you made? I'm just curious because like some people probably are wondering like, how did you get into technology in the first place? I mean, there could be some assumptions, like I could make some assumptions, but I'm not going to, because you know what they say about assuming. But like part of it's like, how did you get into technology in the first place, and what kind of sparked that? What was the first little gadget or little thing or widget or app you ever built?
Yeah, I mean, this might age me, but my dad sort of first bought a computer, which was a Commodore 64.
Commodore 64. Yes, that was my first computer, Commodore 64 in my basement. I loved it.
And then, programming on it using BASIC and sort of building out sort of lightweight games was probably my first advent into programming and building sort of software. Obviously, as a kid, you're like a lot more focused on sort of getting games that are getting folks excited about playing. But I'd say that initial moment was what really sparked what became a lifelong sort of quest.
My game was Fourth and Inches. It was the first ever like video game. It was the first video game I ever played. It was a football game. And then the second iteration, you could name one player on the team, and I named the middle linebacker after my dog. I'll never forget that. And that was like, so I guess that's the difference between me and you is, and this is why you understand what AI is and I don't, is you learned how to program on it and everything else. And I just played the football game and was like, it seems cool. Like you were way smarter than I was. All right. So that's how you ended up in the software engineering and in the Uber space. So I do a lot of investing, angel investing, and so on in a lot of companies. I hear a lot of different pitches. You sit down and you hear Uber back in whenever Uber came out. Like when did Uber first start launch? 2010, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, they started somewhere around that time. I was still
So
quite small when I came in in 2013.
yeah, so 2013, you hear this ride sharing company. How did you decide? Because you're coming from Microsoft, you clearly had like a good resume, good pedigree, and you want to get into the startup space. There were in the Bay Area, there's probably finding a lot of different startups that you could go work at. What was it about Uber at that time that you were like, this one's got some legs to it. This one's going to be amazing?
Yeah. And so I'll respond to this. And I think there are like three things, and I would recommend this to anyone who's interviewing, is like things to look for. All of us, I'm guessing, are looking for that next Uber too. So I think it's good, sort of, good advice. One is mission and purpose. So like I felt like just talking with people at the company at the time, like there was a lot of clarity in what the long-term, vision was and where Uber wanted to be, even in its early days, which I think you have to give Travis some of that credit. I feel like he did a good job at sort of painting that. I think number two was people, and so I talked to 5 people during my interview process. They know who they are, and they made a big difference in me saying yes to them and being part of that company. So ultimately, like the people you end up working with, especially in earlier stage companies, like is foundational to long-term success. And then the third thing was kind of their interview process. So now every time, like I feel like there are sort of playbooks out there for how to do good interviews. What Uber was doing back then, and it worked for them, was like they were giving out sort of homework exercises that got you building a part of that Uber system in ahead of actually the interview. So to me, that got me engaged on the actual problems they were working on much ahead of actually joining the company. And it was almost like I eventually ended up hiring for Uber as a manager and ended up using that same playbook. What it did was it was very self-selecting. Like folks who didn't want to put in the effort to do the homework and like come in prepared were automatically sort of like self-rejecting themselves out of that process. And then folks like myself who found that sort of a useful exercise ended up joining the company. And so that turned out to be a pretty impressive part of sort of the hiring process there. And so yeah, I think those sort of three things were big telltales into this being the right place.
So for you, part of that was like you were able to get an appetite or like a appetizer, small bite version of like what it might look like to work at that company. And when you saw that, you took that as an opportunity where it was like, oh, this is actually really fascinating. This could be something that I can work on. It allowed you to showcase how you would solve those problems in real time and actually gave you an understanding of the type of work that they're actually doing. And that was
Right.
exciting for you.
Exactly. And that exercise was somewhat open-ended. So you had, something to talk about with interviews as you were meeting them. It became a sort of, that's how they remembered, who you were, and like it, created some of that personal touch that sometimes goes missing in interviews. But it turned out to be, a good way to do things.
So I have to ask this just because I loved the show. Did you watch Super Pumped?
I did watch Super Pumped. I mean, I think it was definitely, I'd say um, it mirrored some of the like real things that happened at the company. There were definitely aspects that were exaggerated for like
TV
comedic or
purposes.
TV purposes, but for sure, some of the incidents in there were realistic.
I'm glad you asked. I was thinking
I had
the
to
same
ask
thing.
you.
I
I
was
had to
thinking
ask.
the
I had to
same
ask you,
thing.
dude. I just like I watched it and I called Taylor and I was like, Taylor, we've got an interview question. We're gonna ask it every final interview. Are you an asshole? Like, like I was like, I just want to do it. I want to make that a new final interview question every single time and figure out what people say and figure out if they do the political right answer or if they're like honest with me. I don't know, but I was like, do they actually do that every single time at a final interview? Are you an asshole?
Not when that's the exaggeration part. I felt like they were.
Oh, come on! You just ruined it. We were like, this definitely happened.
I wanted to do it. Taylor advised against it. Taylor's like, we're not doing that, and I was like, no, we are. Like, it's now my
We're
final
not
interview every time.
Uber.
And then Taylor immediately was like, Shane, I don't think you're a part of our interview process
You
anymore.
are-
And I was like, CEO, how can I not be a part of the interview process? He's like, and for those reasons, you have been voted off the island.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit more about Horizon 3. I know we've talked about Uber. That's a fun part of your origin story. And now you're over at Horizon 3. Tell us again, what you're doing, and then we're going to go to what you've taken, and as we've talked about that interview process and what you're doing now over at Horizon 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mentioned, our core product is an autonomous pen testing solution. It's called Note Zero, something that we've been working on for many years now, and is well adopted with customers. Folks who have been using it have found it really valuable. If you've followed the cybersecurity space, pen testing historically has been a very manual sort of process. It's something that you have to do against your environments to ensure compliance or ensure that you are discovering security vulnerabilities and issues. Typically, companies in the past would hire sort of external agencies, consultants, or organizations to come in and run some of this kind of manual effort and produce reports that you would then leverage to either improve your systems or sort of file for compliance purposes. What we have done is that we've actually built an autonomous solution that effectively mirrors what a human would do, what a real attacker would do. And this automating something, as you know, like drastically changes both its efficacy, repeatability, and sort of cost dimensions. Now, at a flip of a button, you can run pen tests against your environment, get a report, and use that every week or every 2 weeks. And that's changed the pattern in which customers are discovering issues, how they're staying ahead of security vulnerabilities, and effectively improving on the security front. So I lead the applications engineering group. We were talking about applications, what they meant. Effectively, these are the products that the company owns. Another name for it would be sort of product engineering. And that's maybe more familiar, but just because we're kind of running them as separate applications, that's kind of the internal name we went with. Besides Node Zero, which I touched upon, I'm also leading some other adjacent sort of more newer products, some AI flavored that the company is investing in.
Who's the typical kind of company that you guys are going after? And it's like, I know that there's obviously pen testing. Do you guys do it at the application level? Do you do it at the compiler level? How deep do you guys go?
So we do both internal and external pen testing against your cloud environment as well as against your internal environments. We are we're open to customers of different sizes. We've really focused on small and medium-sized businesses for now, but we're slowly scaling up as we go. I'd say our pen testing capabilities are also expanding, we are continuing to develop new forms of attack capabilities that can discover weaknesses in your environment.
And so when you're thinking, obviously we're talking about you, but you're part of a bigger org and you're trying to grow. You guys are in that growth phase as you guys are starting to scale, and you're looking to bring on people. What kinds of people, or I guess to be really specific, what roles are you currently looking to grow your team with?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are actively hiring across the board, actually. We're looking for engineers with software experiences, whether it be backend or full stack development. We're also looking for security focused engineers with attack skills. We're looking for uh, engineering managers and leaders who could come in and help grow our company as well. We recently raised a Series D round in March of this year, and so
Yeah.
that is a sort of big unlock for us in terms of mission and charter. And post that, we've been heavily investing in sort of growing our team and enabling engineering to be successful. We're also looking for roles outside of engineering, product design, folks that could kind of be good cross-functional partners for building an amazing product.
That's exciting. It sounds like it's a good time to be at Horizon 3 AI right now when you guys are going through that growth phase, which kind of leads me to think about what your leadership style is, right? Like what type of leadership style do you have? What and I don't know, what kind of legacy do you ultimately want to build?
That's a good question. You often get asked this in interviews, which having been in a few in the past, uh, uh, I feel like I subscribe to the servant leadership mindset, which is I feel like leaders are uh, most effective when they're coming into companies and teams with the intention to be to serve the team. This includes both helping the team in terms of setting direction and strategy, ensuring that the team has the right level of resources and capabilities to deliver on their goals, and then being a partner and resource for everybody on the team when it comes to unblocking unblocking work. In many cases, it can be being hands-on and sort of partnering in actual technical work, but many a times it's also sort of career support and helping engineers find their way through their career path and journey. And so, I mean, engineering management in general is like I'd say a broad role where you're oftentimes spotting what's missing in a team or what's needed and really like filling that gap. And in my mind, like that's sort of the sign of a good manager, is like being able to spot what the team needs.
And when you think about that, like I think about it as like you've worked on some pretty high performing teams, right? And when I think about that, I think about it as like, and Taylor likes to talk about the top college teams or professional teams in the NFL, like NFL, or the top universities recruiting the best talent. I mean, you've been on teams that have been able to recruit some of the best. So I'm curious as to like what do you do to attract top tier talent, and what do you believe other people should do to be able to achieve that? Because like you've clearly been around the best, you've built some of the best, and I mean, you
are some of the best,
you are
right?
some of the best.
Microsoft, Uber, like you got the
Raised at
strong
Series
pedigree.
D, so like there's yeah.
So I think number one thing that that pulls in people is your mission and purpose. I think making sure that's super clear and obvious for someone looking to join a company, and making sure that resonates and aligns with their own sort of personal view of the world and ambition. Typically, is sort of the key ingredient in attracting strong talent. I think the other in sort of our in my field is around sort of the role technology is playing in ultimately the long-term vision for that company. I touched upon that for Uber, even for Horizon 3. Automation and technology is at this forefront of our solution, right? Like we are thinking about ways in which we incorporate AI into our product, and like that becomes sort of a distinguishing feature for long-term success. So I think that's super important, is making sure that you both highlight the higher level mission and purpose to strong candidates, and then also make them connect them with how they, as a technologist on the team, will be playing a critical role in that long-term outcome.
Yeah. So for us, obviously, we run a third-party recruiting agency. We work with companies like a Horizon 3. One of our main focuses is if a client of ours comes to us and we're working with them, we're going to go, what is your mission? Because we want to be able to, like you said, that is a huge part of when we're talking to a candidate before we would ever bring them to Horizon 3, is we want to make sure there is really clear mission alignment. Technical alignment, that's truthfully, that's what most candidates think. I'm a Python dev, or I know JavaScript or whatever it is. But in reality, that's definitely important.
It's a minimum. It's a table stakes.
It's table stakes. Ultimately, like you said, mission alignment is the key. So imagine we're going to work with Horizon 3. What is the mission statement you deliver to us that we then can deliver to the candidate? How would you say it to us to go, here's the mission and the vision for Horizon 3?
So Horizon 3 is aiming to transform the cybersecurity space. I think we want to bring about autonomous pen testing as fundamentally universal concept across the industry. We strongly feel like this attack informs defense, and then that defense informs attack kind of strategy is what's going to be the differentiator in the long term. And so in my mind, that's the key thing that we would be looking for in candidates.
Is people who have the passion for the defending the technology, defending from bad actors, right? Exactly. Like that's something they're passionate about. Is technology can't exist if the bad actors can win, right?
But I have to assume that you guys have teams very similar to like Facebook, where it's like, I know when I was at Facebook, part of the ML team and the backend team, we were building for privacy, and we were like data or like AI integrity. And every single time they were building to work against the systems to prove that it didn't work or it did work. I have to assume there's things like that, which is like even people that are like anti what you guys do. I have to assume there's a team that's helping do that a little bit. I don't know. I could be wrong.
So some of our teams are focused on sort of those core attack capabilities, which are trying to produce, the automation software that runs against our customer environments and detects, basically emulates what a malicious actor would do, and discovers weaknesses and issues in their environment. So some of our teams are focused on that. We also have teams focused on building the product infrastructure around this that, collects all of that data, produces, analysis on top of it, and makes it presentable to users, right? So like that entire model is what kind of drives the end-to-end product for Horizon 3.
That's awesome. So when you think about like what helped you, I don't know, there like you've picked really good bets. Like you have really, it's clear that your intuition has been strong. Right. And so I'm curious if you've had a role model in your career, somebody that you've looked up to, that has like helped kind of shape how you pick things, or I don't know, it could just be a role model in general, but like you've picked, like if I were to like think about your career as like horse racing and horse betting, like you're crushing it. You're walking away every single time winning so far. And that's been impressive. But like, I'm curious if you had a role model that's helped influence that, or is that just like a God-given talent and you've just been naturally gifted?
I mean, I wouldn't say like, I think picking what you do next is oftentimes like, a very personal decision. So I don't think, role models necessarily play a role directly with that. Obviously I lean on advice and mentorship from folks, both in terms of, ideas around what to do next with your career. Very often like mentors and coaches are kind of, giving you higher level advice in terms of what are the kinds of things you should be looking for next, what are your strengths and weaknesses, and what would be, ways in which you could grow and develop. I mean, for me, one role model or someone I, work with that I left a lot, with after working with him was Tuan. He used to be our CTO at Uber. I worked really closely with him on a few sort of company-wide initiatives, and also as part of the engineering leadership team there. And I'd say, the one thing that he really modeled very well was the servant leadership mindset. He embodied it well, and for me, it showed up in a lot of the ways we ran engineering as a company. High levels of empowerment to individual engineers, making sure that we set high level strategy and direction really well, but then also created structure and process that made it so that we could get do our best work together. And that's something that I've looked to replicate everywhere I go, including here at Horizon 3. A lot of our teams are now moving towards becoming what we're calling speedboat teams, which is, cross-functional teams that have clarity in mission and purpose, but then also autonomy to move fast and deliver customer-facing impact.
Well, I think when you have really good people, you can do that, right? And I'm guessing Tuan felt the same way. When he brings on someone for Uber back in the day, I can only imagine that engineering team is, yeah, I'm assuming you were working alongside some real rock stars that were coming on to join Uber and really believed in the mission. And so I'm sure he felt like he could go, here's what we got to build, and let you go build it instead of kind of hovering over you the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, as a leader, you have to take those chances, right? And to some extent, you only know once you try and sort of hand off some of that ownership, and it's always a little uncomfortable. I feel like for leaders to let go and sort of empower others because there is just a loss of control that you feel when that happens. But on the flip side, it definitely energizes the team, especially when it comes to owning outcomes and accountability. And so that balanced approach of setting direction and giving clarity in terms of goals, but then also getting out of the way if you can, and from an actual solutioning standpoint is kind of the right, I felt like has worked in the past. I think you're right about like the talent level matters. So to some extent, you want to be, trust but verify in cases where you're still building that relationship with new folks or people you haven't worked with in the past. But I think the sweet spot is getting to that stage where you can truly be a servant leader.
Yeah. So you mentioned the interview process and how you said, hey, that was mission alignment, and then the interview process was really important for choosing where you worked and so on, and that got you really engaged and brought on really strong people. What's your interview process now look like? Maybe there's some similarities, and I'm sure there's been some evolution from when you were doing your homework back at Uber. And so what's it look like now? Where do you sit in that process? What does it look like over at Horizon 3?
So we have specific processes for specific roles. So it's not a one size fits all, right? I think for a backend engineer, there's a certain sort of interview model we have versus a senior product manager, right? So, but what we aim to do for these is just have standard sort of processes which are repeatable. We tend to make sure that we focus on both technical depth, ensuring that the person that's coming on board has the right skills to be able to succeed in the role that we're looking for them to come in for. But also then there's a focus on cultural fit and ensuring that they would be a good fit onto the team and demonstrate some of the values that the company desires for its long term. So there isn't like a single sort of playbook, but like for each role, we've got a set of processes in place.
And how can, if someone's listening to this, I'm going to just give you a couple of little chances to plug here. Someone's going Horizon 3, that's awesome. I love what they're doing. I love the idea of automation and everything that they're doing. How do they get a hold of you to be able to hopefully get into the interview process?
Yeah. So number one, go to our website, horizon3.ai. We have a jobs sort of listing page there where you can submit an application. I'm happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn too, and I can kind of pass things along or answer questions if you have any about the company or the roles we have open. And then obviously, if you don't see something that matches what you're looking for, like I said, we're actively growing, expanding sort of our vision, and I feel like you want to revisit our webpage or sort of stay connected as things change.
So, and again, we run Next Level. We talked about this a little bit earlier. We're a third-party recruiting agency. I know you've worked with third-party recruiting agencies. What have you experienced, good and bad, in that world? Things that you've liked and things that maybe you haven't. Obviously, if you worked with us, you would love every bit of it. But if you've ever worked with anyone other than Next Level, maybe you've been maybe disappointed, or maybe you've been really thrilled. So tell us a little bit about your experience in that world.
Yes, I'd say it's been a mixed bag. I think what's worked really well is when we've got clarity in what we want to find, and coupled with scarcity in the market, like certain kinds of roles where there's not a lot of talent out there that is either available or accessible. I think that's when sort of recruiting agencies have been really effective, because it just is not sort of productive to try to do that with in-house recruiting. I think for the roles that my company, for example, is trying to hire right now, there's just I think there's just enough sort of candidate pools out there, and so in these cases, I think it can be challenging for recruiting agencies to really find all of the fine-grained things that we are looking for while keeping a high bar. So I think that creates more noise and creates a stress point. So I think in my experience, it's a lot better for recruiting agencies to be focused on niche roles that companies are struggling.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where we live. I know not all agencies are like that. That's what we tend to do. That's why we talk about being headhunters, is really niche, uh, finding the diamonds in the rough rather than high volume type situation. So would you say in your position, being in that engineering leadership, if you're working with a third party agency, you'd rather find one candidate brought to you every 2 weeks that are really, really well picked out rather than 4 candidates a week being sent to you that
Create a lot of noise.
Yeah,
They're obnoxious.
create a lot of noise in your inbox of like, I get that they've had one little bit of the tech stack that they know, but everything else is off.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's super accurate. I think when working with agencies, that the intention is that like we want to cut out that noise and focus on sort of the elevating what we're looking for. And this my sense is that there's like openness to taking a little bit longer, but finding sort of the right person.
Well, and that's great companies, right? It's not about filling a seat. It's about having the right people in the right seats on the bus, right? To
Exactly.
make sure that you guys can grow.
And
That's-
I think we could all agree that the wrong hire can cause a lot more damage than just lost revenue or lost money, right? In an individual hire, it can sink a team. It could sink the wrong hire could damage a lot of things. I don't know if you've seen that in your past or if that's been a struggle that you've had where it's like somebody comes in and you think they're going to be this rock star and all of a sudden they just go in and they're like a ticking time bomb. Have you experienced that in the past?
Yeah, we touched upon Uber and some of the some of the downsides of that culture were the brilliant jokes problem, right? Like, and you want to be cautious about that. That's one of the lessons I took from my time there, and I think it's something that now more managers and leaders are aware of. It's like you really succeed as a team, and like very often an empowered and sort of aligned team is much more valuable than a handful of rock stars. So I think you just have to find that balance and ultimately focus on the long term.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day where they're like, they believe that the benefit of some of the AI tools will allow for increased productivity across the engineering org as a whole, which would allow for people to allocate costs a little bit differently. One of those conversations that I had was just like, they don't believe that they're going to have to hire the engineer that's uber intelligent and is, for lack of a better word, an asshole, and that the world is changing a little bit. I'm curious if you think that's similarly, which is like the engineering culture is shifting from what it was 10 years ago.
I mean, it's clear, right? AI is a pretty great leveler. It kind of raises the bar for everyone. I think my impression is that there will still be people who end up leveraging AI better. I mean, it may not be the same set of folks, right? Like there are folks that are better at leveraging technology and tools than others, and I think there's always going to be a differentiated market. But at the same time, I think it becomes a lot more important some of those non-technical competencies, right? Like being able to work with others, and um, uh, you know, uh, engineering has now a lot more bandwidth to be thinking about sort of product and customer engagements. There, there's less time being spent on coding because you can actually get a lot more accomplished faster, and that frees up some of that engineering bandwidth to focus on the bigger picture things, which I think, to be honest, engineers need to be doing more of anyways. And this just comes at the right time.
Ooh, so now because of Claude, I can be an engineer, right? I can think big picture. I'll let Claude do all the coding. No, probably not. So, I appreciate all the time you've given us. I don't want to keep taking all of your time today. You're pretty heavily involved in AI and you're seeing where it's going. You probably have a better seat to that than I do. We've been talking a lot about, we have a fun conversation. How do you see AI changing the landscape we live in over the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years? Like, are we going to get Skynet? Is it going to melt us through our contact lenses? We talked about that in one of our podcasts, that it's going to be in our contact lens and therefore they can melt our eyeballs if it so chooses to.
I personally like knowing how AI is going to change like the 12-year-old through 18-year-old persona. Like what is that group of people going to look like in the next 10 years? That's what I'm really fascinated
You'll never
with.
have to read a book again. You just ask Claude to tell you what the book was about. So again, how do you see AI changing the way we live?
Yeah, it's obviously like we are in a point in time where there's rapid change, so it's super hard to kind of see all the way far out. It's obvious that like what we have going on right now is pretty transformational. There's a lot of new capabilities coming alive, and even 3 months ago, what you could do with some of this technology feels outdated, and there's so much more you can do now. So it's hard to imagine where we will be. I'd say the world will have some amount of like big shifts as we go, and I think that's something that we as a community have to get sort of accustomed to, both in terms of sort of learning and staying up to date with what's going on, adapting quickly to new things that come about. We in the cybersecurity space are also in that sort of boat. Like we are actively investing how and where to integrate AI into our products, and Horizon 3's making some really bold bets there. My sort of counter to this is that I also think we can't lose sight of the fact that people will still remain a really critical asset to company success, and I think sometimes that's getting lost in our industry right now. I think the past few years we've seen sort of a constant theme of layoffs, reductions, and things like that. And I think for what I can see, like I think they will, the long term will still be influenced by the people you have on your team. And I think it's easy for leaders to kind of lose sight of that and miss out on the fact that no matter what AI you have, like you'll need engineers and talent at the company that can leverage it to bring positive outcomes. So
that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a swing back to companies. They're the ones that we're working with and we're growing because of it, is they're recognizing AI as a wonderful complementary tool, but it's still the people that's important. In fact, arguably more so, as Shane was kind of hinting at, and you have too, which is because of AI, it's allowing an engineer who maybe doesn't have the exact tech stack that you needed. They're close, but they really understand how to utilize that to cover any deficiencies, but they have the great mission fit and culture fit that you're talking about. And a lot of the great companies are really starting to go after that. That's what we're seeing.
I'm really interested to see like how it's going to adjust certain things. Like I was watching a podcast and a video the other day where it was Zuckerberg talking about what he believes to be like the new frontier, where there was the desktop, then there was the mobile device. And he's like 64% of 64%. I don't remember if it's Americans or people in the world are wearing glasses, and they're putting a lot of dollars behind making sure that they can be the first to have smart glasses because they think that that's going to be the new phone. And it's like, it literally just sits in front of your face all day and can control advertising all day long. And it's like, we believe that glasses are going to be the new frontier, and it's going to be in front of you all the time. And that, I don't know if I love that or I hate that, but like for you, I know you're wearing glasses. I'm not wearing glasses, but you're a part of the 64% of people wearing glasses. How do you feel about potentially having glasses that are just going to give you ads all day?
I feel like that's scary to me, but also like
Feels
exciting.
inevitable.
Yeah,
It feels like it's going to happen no matter what. Like
and
I agree.
exciting too, right? I think I mean, not watching advertising all day, but like being able to do so many more things that today just seems science fiction, right? So I'm wearing like this Aura ring, and I'm wearing an Apple Watch, and like this is telling me, how well I slept last night, and like stuff that to some extent, 10 years ago didn't feel real, right? So
Telling you, within 10 years, you're gonna have to plug your brain in when you go to bed. I'm just saying, watch the Matrix.
I'm hoping for an altered carbon version. Like, have you seen Altered Carbon on Netflix?
no, I have not.
Oh, it's so good. It's like it's way better than Matrix.
Hey,
The season one specifically, but it's like this idea of like we like our souls exist in a disc essentially,
that's what
and
I'm
then your
saying.
bodies are just sleeves, and you can plug and play.
No, I don't think that's gonna happen. I mean, I'm sure
Closest thing to
in
singularity.
2001 or 2002 and 3 and 4, as the cell phones started coming out, I'm sure a lot of people thought, well, that's good, and some people thought it was bad, and it's good and bad, right? Like, we all have cell phones. You got one on your desk, we got them on our desks, and just now how we live, and we have to be careful with them and not to overuse them and not to be distracted and so on and so forth, but they're a part of our lives. And he just bought a pair of Adidas sneakers with his glasses. You didn't even know it. He just bought Adidas right there.
Just did it right now.
All right, so on to Netflix. Last question: what are you watching right now? What is the Netflix show, or Hulu, or Paramount Plus, or whichever one of the 19 streaming things that you were told to get rid of cable so that you could purchase 19 different packages to equal your old cable package? What are you watching now?
So I have a 9-year-old at home, and we tend to kind of watch TV together. So it has to be kind of safe that way. We've been watching Young Sheldon. It's a favorite,
Yep.
and we love it.
It's really good.
Okay, I got two 11-year-olds at home, and yes, I've seen 99 episodes of Young Sheldon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we were big fans of Big Bang Theory when that was alive, and I think this just kind of keeps that going.
All right, so mine that I've been telling people that they need to watch, don't watch it with your 9-year-old. It's the Monster. It's the docu-series about the first ever, or not first ever, but pretty gruesome serial killer. That was disturbing. So I'm working through getting that out of my brain.
Zero chance I'm watching it. He's been trying to convince me for 2 weeks now.
Well, I'm miserable every day after watching it. I figured he might as well be miserable after watching it. It's pretty wild. Just watch The Perfect Neighbor. That's also not a fun TV show to watch. So I need to watch more Young Sheldon. I need more Young Sheldon in my life. All right. Well, Hasrat, again, we appreciate so they can go to get connected with you. If someone's looking to launch their career to the next level, they can go find you at either LinkedIn. Everyone can see how your name is spelled. Either go find you on LinkedIn, or go to horizon3.ai and find the careers page and apply there.
Absolutely.
Is there if you could pick the one type of person that's going to go apply right now, that's listening and is like, that's who I am, who would it be?
Folks that are passionate about cybersecurity, folks that love building products, and want to be part of this long-term journey.
That's awesome. And again, Horizon 3 raised a bunch of money earlier this year. They're growing, they're booming, and they're doing some awesome stuff in the automation side of the cybersecurity. So Hasrat, the head of applications engineering over at Horizon 3, with a huge, amazing background from Microsoft to Uber to now here. I would follow him because clearly he does pick the right bets. So Horizon 3, I might try to invest in your next round. You guys are doing amazing things. So again, thank you for joining us. Have an awesome week. To everyone at home, make sure you go check out horizon3.ai, subscribe to the podcast, leave some comments, and check out our next episode. To everyone, goodbye.